If Eric Bischoff is correct and controversy does create cash, well, that would explain why WWE is the most successful wrestling promotion of all time. As Vince McMahon is no stranger to scandal, and I'm not just talking about his current issues either. But no matter how serious these situations are, Vince McMahon somehow mostly comes out unscathed, and these situations are serious. They're also the topic of this episode, because today... Thank you to all my Patreon supporters such as Dakari Garman and Rodney Harris. You really help to keep this channel going. Thank you. Okay, before we start the video, there are a few things I want to get out the way. Number one, in the United States, we still believe in innocent until proven guilty. And in some of these cases, not guilty is exactly how Vince McMahon was found. And in others, he wasn't even tried or charged to begin with. Furthermore, I'm also not trying to say that I know whether he did or did not do any of the things I'm about to bring up. Nor am I going to say that I know what's going to happen to him during his current predicament. All I'm trying to say is that these are accusations that were made against him, and regardless of the outcome, Vince McMahon and his career made it out on the other side intact. So please, just keep all this in mind when you're in the comment section, and don't take this video for anything more than just a list of several claims that have been made against Vince McMahon. Whether they are true or false is a completely different issue. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the list. We start this list off obviously enough with the steroid trials, as this is easily the biggest and grandest case that Vince McMahon has ever faced, although we have yet to see how his current situation will pan out. Now, what made the steroid trials so big is that it was covered by major national media outlets, and not just by the dirt sheets. Something wrestling related making national headlines was and still is a very rare, and not only that, we also got a courtroom rendering of Hulk Hogan, which is not something you see every day. And for the uninitiated, the Anabolic Steroids Control Act of 1990 officially went into effect in February of 1991, but also in that year, Dr. George Sahorian was convicted of illegally supplying anabolic steroids. And during his trial, it was revealed that Sahorian had supplied steroids to some wrestlers in the WWF, as he did have a good relationship with the company and McMahon, even being interviewed by him on air.
But I'm getting sick and tired.
This would translate to Vince McMahon himself being accused of knowingly distributing steroids to his wrestlers. He was initially brought up on 6 counts, however 3 of those counts were dismissed right away, before the case was even brought to trial. And during the trial itself, 11 wrestlers were brought in to testify, including one Hulk Hogan, who did admit to taking steroids but said he took them of his own volition. And the only wrestler that did claim that Vince McMahon gave them steroids was Nails. However, the defense argued that he was a hostile witness that was holding a grudge against McMahon and the WWF. Ultimately, the judge dismissed 2 of the counts on the grounds that the prosecution did not provide sufficient evidence in order to make the case. This resulted in only 1 charge left, which, after deliberation, a jury found Vince McMahon not guilty of. When it comes to the legal definition of an independent contractor, Vince McMahon seemingly didn't get the memo, as by law, a lot of the conditions for being an independent contractor simply aren't followed up with in WWE. This issue gained prominence when John Oliver covered it on his show last week tonight, with the show further going into great detail about the healthcare that's being provided for wrestlers, or a lack thereof. Naturally, WWE had a response to this, as they stressed that the safety of their employees is of the utmost importance. Meanwhile, they're still not giving their wrestlers medical benefits because, well, technically they don't have to since they're supposedly independent contractors. But of course, safety first and all. Many of us remember back in 2002 when WWF had to get the F out and became WWE. And some of us who are of a certain age do still sometimes call it WWF by mistake from time to time. This was a result of Vince McMahon and the company now known as WWE losing a legal dispute with the Worldwide Fund for Nature when they sued WWE for unfair trade practices in using their shared initials. Now, to be clear, the Worldwide Fund does predate WWE, being established in 1961. That even predates the WWF itself. And as such, when the company decided to switch over to simply being the World Wrestling Federation back in 1979, they had an agreement with the Worldwide Fund, that way they could both share the initials. initials. However, there were several conditions for this agreement, namely that they wouldn't use the initials too much outside of North America. However, as Vince's dream began to grow internationally, this became more of a problem, and so the Worldwide Fund decided to sue him. And as we're all calling Vince's company WWE nowadays, that just shows how this case went. Although things did slightly improve, as initially WWE had to censor all mentions of WWF, even in written form. But after 10 years, WWE no longer had to censor F-bombs, which is why on the WWE Network or on the Peacock you can hear people say WWF or see the old WWF logos without it being a big deal. Oh, and in case you were confused by me calling it the Worldwide Fund for Nature, then allow me to say that while the organization's original name was the World Wildlife Fund in the 1980s, they changed to the new name. But in order to avoid confusion, they still remained with the original title in the United States and Canada. So hope that clears things up. Alright, so this won't be easy to talk about, but back in 2006 in Boca Raton, Florida, a tanning salon employee walked into a police station and said that Vince McMahon had attacked her, saying that Vince walked in and began showing her nude pictures of himself on his cell phone after she asked to take a picture with him. Following this, it was then alleged that McMahon followed her into another room, and then forcibly groped her and tried to kiss her, after being told repeatedly to stop. After this, a spokesperson for the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office said that this specific incident would only count as a misdemeanor, and as such, while an arrest warrant was filed, there was no physical evidence, no photographs, no independent witnesses, and therefore formal charges couldn't be brought up. Modern fans might be under the impression that WWE only recently started having female referees, but that is not the case, as back in the 1980s, Rita Marie Chatterton was the first female referee in WWE. However, she didn't serve as a ref for very long. In July of 1986, McMahon allegedly gave her an offer to exchange sexual favors in order to save her career, and when Chatterton refused, Vince McMahon again allegedly raped her. After this, unsurprisingly, she resigned from the company and would go on to tell her story on the Geraldo Rivera show Now It Can Be Told years later. And what's worse is these two claims are not the only ones of this nature, as there are others out there for Vince as well. Several former WWE talents have claimed that WWE did not protect them from or hid information about CTE and concussions. They also claimed that as a direct result of their time in WWE, they received a lot of physical and mental health issues. However, in 2018, U.S. District Judge Vanessa Lynn Bryant dismissed many of these lawsuits. Then in 2020, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit also dismissed them as well, resulting in the United States Supreme Court declining to hear the cases last year. And coming full circle, we have several class action lawsuits that were pit against WWE on behalf of their shareholders. Sometimes it really seems like a publicly traded company is more trouble than it's worth. You know, unless you like money. Anyhow, there are a lot of these types of lawsuits against WWE, many of which never gain any traction while others are quietly settled before anyone really notices. Like just recently with Oliver Luck. Anyway, overall, most of these lawsuits come down to the same idea, with either Vince McMahon or WWE itself deliberately giving false information or misleading statements, or not disclosing pertinent information, which is deceptive to investors as it makes the business and the product seem like it's doing better than it is, and therefore artificially raises the price. And some of these claims of misinformation include WWE not fully disclosing the true nature of their deal with Saudi Arabia, as well as claims that the reason why ratings and attendance are down is because certain talents are injured, despite ratings and attendance not going back up after those talents return, as well as currently several law firms looking into a potential class action lawsuit against WWE on behalf of shareholders as they are looking into potential unlawful behavior amidst all of Vince McMahon's current misconduct allegations. Well, there you go, 7 controversies that Vince McMahon himself has survived, and there are definitely others out there. What more can you think of? Let me know down in the comments, and please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, and if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank all of my awesome Patreon supporters out there, and as always, Dave knows.